My son's family pulled away laughing, their car vanishing down the highway while an old man like me stood under the gas station lights like forgotten luggage. I stood there in the cold, hunger gnawing like an animal, the pumps hissing beside me. Hours passed. Nobody came back, but I didn't complain and made my way back quietly. After 2 weeks, with one stroke of a pen, their house was gone, stripped from beneath their feet as they stripped me from their car. Before the story starts, please tap that like button and consider subscribing. The invitation came 3 days before Thanksgiving, my son Brandon calling with that rushed tone he got when his wife was listening. "Dad, we're driving to Salt Lake City for the holiday. Pick you up at 9 Thursday morning." 8 hours in the car with Diane scrutinizing every word I said, Trevor lost in his phone, and Emma trying to keep the peace. But they were family, the only family I had left since Mary died. So I said yes. Thursday arrived gray and bitter, 15 degrees according to the thermometer on my porch. Brandon's silver Escalade pulled up late, Diane in the passenger seat checking her makeup in the mirror. She didn't get out. Never did anymore. Trevor sat in back with earbuds, a 16-year-old wall of indifference. Only Emma waved from the third row, 14 and still kind despite her mother's influence. "Happy Thanksgiving, Grandpa," she called out as I climbed in with my overnight bag. The drive west on Interstate 70 should have been beautiful. Mountains rose white-capped against the November sky. But inside the car, tension thick as smoke made it hard to appreciate the view. Diane kept mentioning her sister's new house, how spacious it was, how they'd converted the basement into a rental unit for extra income. "Smart investing," she said, catching my eye in the mirror. "Not everyone can just sit on property without maximizing its value." Brandon's hands tightened on the wheel, but he said nothing. He never contradicted her anymore. We stopped for gas near Vale, everyone scattering to stretch legs and use restrooms. Emma stayed with me, sipping hot chocolate from a vending machine. "Mom and Dad were fighting this morning," she said quietly. "About money again. And about you." I studied her face, so much like someone I'd known long ago, though she'd never know it. "Adults fight sometimes," I said. "It doesn't mean anything." But her eyes, bright and knowing, suggested she understood more than I gave her credit for. The second stop came near Rawlins, Wyoming, middle of nowhere with wind that cut like glass. Just a gas station and endless highway in both directions. "Bathroom break," Brandon announced, though we'd stopped an hour ago. "Dad, you coming?" My 68-year-old bladder said yes. The bathroom was around the side of the building, a single occupancy box with a door that barely closed. Fluorescent light flickering, making everything sickly green. I took my time, washed my hands twice, and tried to prepare myself for 3 more hours of Diane's passive aggression. When I came back around the building, the parking lot was empty. No silver Escalade, no family, just oil stains on concrete and an empty hot chocolate cup rolling in the wind. For a moment, I stood frozen, certain I was looking in the wrong spot. But there was only one spot. They were gone. The wind picked up harder, driving ice crystals against my face. My phone was in the car, in the seat pocket where I'd been sitting. My wallet, too, because Diane had asked to see my driver's license earlier, something about insurance, and I'd forgotten to get it back. The gas station attendant, a kid maybe 19, looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language when I explained. "They left you? Your family?" He shrugged, went back to scrolling his phone. "Pay the phone back if you need it." The payphone hadn't worked in years. Receiver cracked and hanging like something dead. By 5 o'clock, full dark had fallen, and the temperature dropped further. I huddled in the doorway until the kid locked up at 11, driving away without a backward glance. A trucker finally stopped at 2 in the morning, a big man with kind eyes who let me use his phone. When Brandon answered, there were voices in the background, laughter and music. "Dad? Where are you?" The question was so absurd I almost laughed. "Where you left me, Brandon. In Wyoming. In the cold." Silence. Then Diane's voice, sharp and commanding. He came back on, words sounding rehearsed. "It was a family tradition from Diane's side. Testing resourcefulness. We knew you'd figure it out." The trucker, Bill, was headed to Denver anyway. He shared his coffee, didn't ask questions, just drove, while I tried to understand how my son could drive away laughing while I stood in the cold. "Family," Bill said once, somewhere near Laramie. "Sometimes they're the ones who hurt us most." He dropped me at a bus station, insisted on giving me cash for a ticket home. Wouldn't take no for an answer. Little did they know that in exactly 2 weeks. I got home Thanksgiving evening to find them at dinner, Brandon carving turkey, while Diane poured wine. A perfect family tableau, except for the empty chair where I should have been. They heard the door, and the laughter stopped. Brandon stood so fast he knocked over his wine glass, red spreading across Diane's white tablecloth, like blood. "Dad," he started, but I held up my hand and walked past them to my room. The smallest bedroom, barely bigger than a closet, while upstairs a guest suite sat empty except for Diane's exercise equipment. Brandon knocked softly, minutes later. "Dad, please, let me explain." I opened the door, looked at this man I'd raised since he was 6 months old. "Explain what? How did you drive away laughing?" "Oh yes, Trevor sent a message. Probably didn't know it would show when I logged into my account from Bill's phone. You were laughing, Brandon." His face went through several expressions before settling on defiance. "It wasn't supposed to be like that. Diane said her family did it all the time. Character building." Emma appeared then, slipping past her father to hug me. "I told them to go back," she whispered. "I told them it was wrong." Trevor stood in his doorway, looking uncomfortable. "Mom said you needed to learn you're not the head of this family anymore," he said, the words hanging like a confession. Diane appeared at the top of the stairs, perfect as always despite the chaos. "Oh, you made it back. We were so worried." The lie was so obvious, even Trevor looked away. "Worried," I repeated. "So worried you didn't call the police? Didn't drive back? Didn't even leave me my wallet?" She descended the stairs slowly, each step calculated. "Gerald, you're being dramatic. It was a harmless prank. Brandon's family has done it for generations." But Brandon had never mentioned this tradition in 38 years. "We need to talk about your future anyway," she continued. "A man your age, wandering around alone, anything could happen. Maybe assisted living would be safer." The threat was clear. They wanted me gone, wanted the house they thought was theirs. What they didn't know was that the house had never been Brandon's, never been mine to give. It belonged to someone who'd died 40 years ago. Someone whose name they'd never heard. That night, I went to the basement, to the locked filing cabinet I'd insisted on keeping when I moved in 5 years ago after my heart attack. Inside were documents that told a different story than the one Brandon had lived his whole life. The papers were yellowed, but legal, witnessed and notarized. A deed in a name that wasn't mine or Mary's. A will with conditions that seemed like drug-fueled rambling 40 years ago, but now read like prophecy. And photographs hidden so long I'd almost forgotten they existed. A young woman holding a baby. Both beautiful. Both doomed. The woman looked exactly like Brandon because she was his real mother. Dead before he could remember her face. 3 days after Thanksgiving, while everyone pretended nothing had happened, I made phone calls. The gas station still had security footage, the manager said, though getting it would require a formal request. The trustee named in the will had died, but his son had taken over the practice. "Interesting case," he said when I explained. "The conditions are unusual but seem enforceable. Abandonment would certainly qualify if proven." Emma found me making these calls because that child could find secrets like others found loose change. "Grandpa, what are you doing?" I should have sent her away, but something in her face stopped me. "Fixing something that's been broken for a long time," I said. She sat beside me, picked up an old photograph from my desk. "Who's this?" "She's pretty." The woman in the picture had been pretty once, before life broke her. "Someone from long ago," I said carefully. "Someone who trusted me with something precious." "She looks familiar," Emma said, studying the photo. Then, quieter. "She has Dad's eyes." Children see what adults miss. "Genetics are funny things," I said, taking the photo gently. "Emma, can you keep a secret?" She nodded solemnly. "Your parents are going to be very upset soon. Things are going to change. But whatever happens, remember that I love you." She hugged me then, fierce and sudden. "I know, Grandpa. I know you do." That evening at dinner, Diane talked about Christmas plans. "We're thinking Hawaii. Just the four of us. A real family vacation." The exclusion wasn't subtle. Brandon looked uncomfortable, but didn't contradict her. They were still pretending the abandonment hadn't happened, that leaving me in Wyoming was just a funny story to tell later. "That sounds nice," I said mildly. "I'll probably be handling some business. Legal matters that have been waiting too long." Diane's eyes sharpened. "What legal matters?" I smiled. The first real smile since Thanksgiving. "Family matters. Old promises. Debts that need settling." Brandon went pale. He knew I'd been in the basement and had probably seen the locked cabinet standing open. "Dad," he started. But I stood up. 40 years is a long time to keep secrets, Brandon. But some secrets have expiration dates. That night, I heard them arguing upstairs. Diane's voice sharp and demanding, Brandon's defensive and confused. "He knows something," she insisted. "That old man is sitting on something, and I'm going to find out what." But she was too late. The wheels were already turning. In 2 days, the security footage would be ready. In 3 days, the trustee would file the papers. And in a week, the truth would detonate like a bomb in their carefully constructed life. The morning after my cryptic dinner comment, Diane went into research mode. I could hear her on the phone with her sister, the paralegal who thought she knew everything about property law. "Run a title search," she said. "Something's not right here." But they were looking in the wrong places, searching for deeds and mortgages when they should have been looking for death certificates and wills. The truth wasn't in property records. It was in a grave at Mountain View Cemetery, under a stone that just said, "Beloved Mother," because I couldn't afford more 40 years ago. I made breakfast like any other morning, scrambled eggs and toast, the routine keeping my hands steady while my mind raced. Diane came down dressed for war in a navy suit, her laptop bag heavy with printed records. "Gerald," she said, not looking at me, "we need to discuss your living arrangements. This situation is untenable." I kept scrambling eggs. "What situation would that be?" She slammed her folder on the counter. "Don't play dumb. You know something about this house, about Brandon's history, and you're going to tell us." "Or what?" I asked mildly, plating the eggs. "Or we'll have you evaluated. A man your age, acting erratically, making threats about family secrets. Any judge would see the need for intervention." The threat hung between us like a blade. She meant it. I could see it in her eyes. The same calculation that had led to leaving me on that highway. Brandon cornered me in the kitchen while Diane was gone. He moved differently now, uncertain, like the ground might give way beneath him. "Dad, whatever you're planning, please don't. We made a mistake. I made a mistake. But destroying our family won't fix it." He looked exhausted, older than his 38 years. There was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before, a flicker of genuine remorse beneath the defensiveness. His hands shook slightly as he poured coffee, spilling some on the counter. "I didn't want to leave you," he said quietly, wiping up the spill with deliberate care. "Diane insisted. Said you were getting too comfortable, acting like you owned everything. She made it sound reasonable, like we were helping you maintain independence." He laughed bitterly. 7 hours in the cold is independence? "But I do own everything," I said simply. "At least I can control it. Have for 40 years. His face went white, then red, then white again. "What are you talking about?" I poured coffee, steady hands despite the earthquake inside me. The morning light through the kitchen window caught the steam, making it dance like ghosts between us. Brandon, has it ever occurred to you that you look nothing like me, or like Mary? He set down his mug hard enough to chip the counter. Genetics are random. Everyone says that. But everyone was wrong, and deep down he knew it. I'd seen him studying old photos, comparing features, finding nothing of himself in the man he called father. Random, I repeated. Like your height when Mary and I were both short. Like your blue eyes when we both had brown. Like your artistic hands when neither of us could draw a straight line. Stop, he said, but it came out as a whisper. The house creaked around us, settling into truth after 40 years of lies. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked, the sound sharp in the morning quiet. Normal life continuing, while ours unraveled thread by thread. Emma interrupted us, home from school early with a headache. Real or faked, I couldn't tell, but she attached herself to me like a shadow. Her backpack hit the floor with a thud that made Brandon flinch. The nurse said I looked pale, she announced, though her color seemed fine to me. Grandpa, can you make me tea? The kind Grandma Mary used to make. I put the kettle on, the familiar ritual calming. Your father was asking about genetics, I said carefully. Emma perked up, that sharp intelligence focusing. Oh, we're doing that in biology. Did you know traits can skip generations? Sometimes you look more like grandparents than parents. Or aunts and uncles, I said, watching Brandon's face. Sometimes you look exactly like an aunt or uncle you never knew existed. Brandon's breathing got shallow. Emma looked between us, sensing the undercurrent. Dad, are you okay? You look sick. Tell her, Brandon said suddenly. If you're going to destroy everything, at least have the courage to do it in front of my daughter. Emma's eyes went wide. The kettle whistled, sharp and insistent. I turned off the heat, poured water over the teabag, the ordinary action surreal in the moment. Your father was a good baby, I said to Emma, but looking at Brandon. Hardly ever cried, except once, for 7 hours straight, the night his mother died. Brandon dropped his coffee mug. It shattered on the floor, brown liquid spreading like the wine had days ago. Like blood. Like all the spills that marked the breaking points of our family. Mary died when I was 12, he said mechanically. You mean when Mary died? But I was tired of lies. Tired of carrying someone else's secret. The weight of 40 years pressed on my chest like stones. No, Brandon. I mean the night your real mother died, when you were 6 months old. December 15th, 1984. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma stood frozen, teabag dripping from her fingers onto the floor. Brandon stood among the broken ceramic, coffee soaking through his socks. You're lying, he whispered, but it came out like a prayer, desperate and hopeless. He could see the truth in my face, 40 years of truth I'd swallowed like poison, dose by dose, day by day. Who? Emma started, then stopped. Started again. Who was she? I looked at this wise child, this granddaughter who deserved truth even if it hurt. My sister, I said simply. Your real grandmother was my younger sister. The basement became my refuge while the house exploded with arguments upstairs. Diane had returned, found Brandon sitting on the kitchen floor among the mug shards, Emma crying silently at the table. I could hear Diane's voice, sharp and demanding. Brandon's responses muffled and broken. Their bedroom door slammed. Emma's lighter footsteps padded to her room. Trevor's video game sounds stopped, then started again, his way of coping with chaos. I sat among boxes of Christmas decorations we'd never hang, looking at documents that would destroy everything. The will was handwritten on legal pad paper, witnessed by a legal aid lawyer who probably thought he was humoring a dying woman. But it was legal, binding, with one strange condition about the house. My sister's handwriting got shakier toward the end. The medication fighting the pain, the drugs fighting the medication, everything fighting everything, until only the baby mattered. The basement held other memories too. Brandon's first bicycle, the one I'd taught him to ride in the park while Mary watched from a bench, too weak from chemo to help, but insisting on being there. His high school graduation cap, the one he'd thrown in the air despite the rules. Emma's baby clothes that Diane had boxed up to donate, but I'd hidden down here, unable to let go of the last traces of innocence. Trevor found me there, surprising us both. He stood on the stairs, not quite committing to coming down. "Grandpa, Mom's going crazy upstairs. She keeps saying Dad's adopted or something." His voice cracked on the last word, 16 years old and trying to sound mature, while his world shifted beneath him. "Not adopted," I said carefully, making space for him on the old couch we'd stored down here. "But he isn't what he thinks he is either." Trevor descended slowly, each step deliberate. He sat far from me, maintaining distance like confusion might be contagious. "Is that why you're selling the house? To punish them for Thanksgiving?" "I'm not selling anything," I said. "The house is reverting to its original purpose. Your grandmother, your real grandmother, wanted it used to help people if certain conditions were met. Abandonment was one of those conditions." I showed him the will and pointed to the relevant section. His eyes scanned it twice, 3 times, understanding dawn. "So because they left you at that gas station," he trailed off, working through the implications. "Mom planned it for weeks. I heard her on the phone with Aunt Patricia, laughing about it." The betrayal in his voice was fresh, the realization that his mother was capable of such cruelty. "She said you were getting senile, that it would be funny to see if you could find your way back." The security footage arrived that afternoon, delivered by courier on a USB drive. The delivery man had me sign 3 times, verify my identity twice. Formal process for formal evidence. I watched it once on my laptop, alone in my room. Door locked against interruption. There we were, pulling into the station, the timestamp clear in the corner. There I was, walking to the bathroom, my gait slightly stiff from sitting. And there they were, driving away 90 seconds later, Diane pointing at something on her phone, Brandon laughing, Trevor grinning, only Emma looking uncomfortable, turning back to look as they pulled away. The timestamp showed 3:47 p.m. The next movement was me emerging at 3:49, standing in the empty lot like a fool, looking around with increasing desperation. That evening, Brandon tried once more. He'd been drinking, not enough to be drunk, but enough to blur the edges. "Dad, please. Whatever happened in the past, we're still family. I'm still your son." He stood in my doorway, not quite entering, like a vampire needing invitation. "I raised you. Changed your diapers. Taught you to throw a ball. Doesn't that count for something?" But he wasn't my son, not really. He was my nephew, my sister's child, a baby I'd taken because she begged me to while dying from an overdose in the upstairs bathroom of this very house. The same bathroom Diane used now, complaining about the outdated fixtures, never knowing someone had died there, fighting for breath while her baby cried down the hall. "You're right," I said. "You're still family. But family doesn't abandon family on highways. Your mother knew that. That's why she put the condition in her will." The word mother made him flinch. He was still processing, still trying to reconcile the woman who'd raised him with the phantom who'd birthed him. "What condition? What will?" "Mom didn't leave a will." He was talking about Mary, sweet Mary, who'd married me knowing I came with a baby, who'd raised Brandon as her own, until cancer took her when he was 12. Mary, who'd never asked for the details, just opened her arms and her heart and became the mother Brandon needed. "Not Mary," I said. "Your real mother, the one whose house this actually is." The truth sat between us like a loaded gun, hammer cocked, finger on the trigger. "Meeting in 3 days," I said. "You can hear it all then, with lawyers present. Or you can keep pretending nothing's wrong until your world collapses." He chose to walk away, footsteps heavy on the stairs. The house settled into uneasy quiet. Everyone in separate rooms, processing the bomb I'd detonated in their lives. Diane's sister arrived the next morning with boxes of legal books and a laptop, ready for war. They set up in the dining room like it was a command center, spreading papers across the table where we'd just celebrated Thanksgiving. "There's something called adverse possession," she was saying as I passed. "If you've lived somewhere long enough, paid the taxes, maintained it, you can claim ownership even without a proper title." But they didn't understand. Brandon had never paid the taxes. I had, from my pension, every quarter for 40 years. The receipts were in my filing cabinet, along with everything else that would destroy their plans. Brandon went to work but came home early, his face gray and drawn. He'd been drinking. I could smell it. Not drunk, just enough to dull the edges of what he was learning. "I looked up death records," he said, finding me in the garden. "Found someone named Catherine Mills. Died December 15th, 1984. Drug overdose." I kept pruning the roses, careful and methodical. "That's right," I said. "Heroin." She was 23. "Same age as Mom when I was born." "Mary, I mean." His voice cracked on her name. "Mary was 31 when we got married," I corrected. "You were already 7 months old. She loved you instantly, never asked too many questions about where you came from. Some women are born mothers. Mary was one of them." He absorbed this slowly, puzzle pieces clicking. "So, this Catherine was your mother," I finished. "My sister. Which makes me your uncle, not your father. Though I've been your father in every way that mattered for 40 years. The pruning shears slipped, nicking my thumb. Blood welled up, bright red against the November gray. "She named you Brandon after our grandfather. Died before she could sign the adoption papers. So I just kept you. Mary and I raised you." He staggered to the porch steps, sat down hard. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question every adopted child asks, every hidden truth demands. "Because she made me promise." She was dying, Brandon. 23 years old, dying from the drugs, and all she wanted was for you to have a normal life. No stigma, no shame. Not knowing your mother chose heroin over you. He flinched at the harshness, but the truth was harsh. "She didn't choose it over me," he said quietly. "Addiction isn't a choice." "No," I agreed, "but leaving me at that gas station was." That evening, Emma helped me pack important things in my room. She didn't ask why, just carefully wrapped the few photographs I had of Catherine. The documents I'd hidden so long. "I heard Mom on the phone," she said. "She's trying to have you declared incompetent. Says you're showing signs of dementia." I laughed, bitter and short. "The only thing I'm showing signs of is clarity. 40 years of fog lifting." "Are we really going to lose the house?" she asked. I sat on my narrow bed, looking at this wise child. "The house was never really yours to lose. It belongs to your real grandmother's estate. When certain conditions are met, it reverts to helping people struggling with addiction. Your father abandoning me triggered that clause." She absorbed this with that eerie calm she had. "Good," she said finally. "Maybe it'll help someone's mom get clean. Maybe some kid won't lose their mother like Dad did." That night, I heard Brandon crying. Soft, muffled sobs from their bedroom, while Diane's voice rose and fell in anger. She was berating him for not knowing, for not seeing, for letting me keep such massive secrets. But how could he have known? I'd hidden it all so well, protecting him from a truth that would have defined him. The boy whose mother died of an overdose, the child of an addict. The nephew was raised as a son. The trustee called the next morning. "Everything's in order, Mr. Mills. The will is valid, the condition clearly met. We have the security footage showing abandonment. The house will transfer to the Recovery Trust in 30 days unless they contest, which, given the evidence, would be futile. 30 days. After 40 years, everything would change in 30 days. There's one more thing," he added. "The current value is significant. $850,000. That will help a lot of people. I thought about Catherine then. Really thought about her for the first time in years. Not the broken woman at the end, but the girl who'd painted sunflowers on her bedroom wall, who'd sung to baby Brandon even as the drugs called to her. She'd tried so hard to get clean, checking herself into programs 3 times. But addiction was stronger than willpower, stronger than love, stronger than the baby who needed her. Now her death would mean something. Her house would save other mothers, other children. Brandon found me looking at her pictures. One where she was pregnant, radiant despite everything. One from high school, before the drugs, when she still had hope. And one with baby Brandon, taken just weeks before she died. She was beautiful, he said softly. You have her eyes, I said. Her height, her artist's hands, everything but her demons, thank God. He picked up the pregnancy photo. Who was my father? She never said. Probably didn't know. The drugs made everything blurry near the end. He absorbed this final blow to his identity. So I'm nobody from nowhere. I stood, faced this man I'd raised. You're Brandon Mills. You're a father, a worker, a human being I spent 40 years loving and protecting. Until you left me on that highway, you were my son in every way that mattered. That's who you are. The meeting was December 1st, 10 a.m. sharp. Brandon took off work, told Diane he had a dental appointment. She was too busy with her sister planning legal strategies to question it. The morning was bitter cold. Frost painting the windows in patterns that looked like the dendrites in Catherine's last brain scans, branching into nowhere. We drove separately, Brandon in his Escalade that had left me behind, me in my old Honda that had never failed me. The office building downtown reflected the mountains in its glass walls, 20 floors of ambition and broken promises. Brandon met me in the lobby, his face tight with worry and confusion. He'd dressed in his best suit, the one from his wedding, though it hung loose on him now. Dad, he said, then caught himself. Gerald, I don't know what to call you anymore. Call me whatever feels right, I said. Names don't change 40 years of history, but they did, and we both knew it. The elevator ride felt eternal, each floor a year of lies ascending toward truth. Brandon's phone buzzed constantly. Diane, demanding updates, demanding answers, demanding control she'd never have again. The trustee's office was smaller than expected, just a conference room with a view of the city where Catherine had lived and died. The trustee was younger than his father had been, efficient and kind. He'd arranged everything just as I asked, including having someone from the recovery center present. A woman about Catherine's age, if she'd lived. Professional but warm. The kind of person who understood broken things could still serve purposes. Mr. Mills, the trustee said to Brandon, who sat rigid in his chair like a defendant awaiting verdict. There are aspects of your history that need to be clarified. Brandon's phone buzzed again. He looked at it, showed me the screen. Diane, where the hell are you really? The dentist says you don't have an appointment. He turned it off, faced the truth like a man. I know about Catherine, he said, the name still foreign on his tongue. I know she was my mother. Gerald told me. The trustee nodded, pushed a document across the table. The will, yellowed and fragile. Catherine's last coherent act. This is her will, handwritten 3 weeks before her death. Please read the highlighted section. Brandon read aloud, voice shaking like leaves in winter wind. If my son, Brandon Mills, should ever abandon, neglect, or cause deliberate harm to Gerald Mills, who has agreed to raise him as his own, the property at 4723 Maple Street shall revert to a trust for addiction recovery services. He read it again silently, lips moving like prayer. She knew. Somehow she knew this might happen. She knew addiction destroyed families, I said. She watched it destroy ours. Our parents disowned her when she was 19 and caught her stealing from Mom's purse for drug money. Friends disappeared one by one. She lost everything except that house and you. Maybe she figured anyone capable of abandoning family had something broken inside them, same as she did. The woman from the recovery center spoke gently. "Mr. Mills, the house will help establish the Catherine Mills Recovery Fund. We estimate it will help dozens of addicts annually. Your mother's death will save lives." She pulled out architectural plans, showing where the house would be converted into transitional housing. Catherine's sunflower room would become a counseling space. The bathroom where she died would help others get clean. Brandon laughed, bitter and broken. "Great. My mother, the junkie, became a saint, and I became homeless because I made one mistake." His hands shook as he pushed the plans away. "One mistake? You call 7 hours in freezing weather one mistake?" "Not one mistake," I corrected. "A deliberate choice. You drove away laughing, Brandon. The security footage is clear. You left me there while you ate Thanksgiving dinner, while you watched football, while you went to bed in a warm house." The footage played on the laptop screen. Silent, but damning. Brandon watched himself abandon me, watched his family drive away laughing. His face in the video looked like a stranger's, casual and cruel. "Diane insisted," he said weakly. "She said you were getting too comfortable. Said you acted like you owned everything." The trustee cleared his throat. "According to these property records, he does own everything, or rather control it as a trustee. The taxes have been paid from his personal account for 40 years. Brandon's world rearranged itself in that moment. Every assumption, every certainty, crumbling like old mortar. "I need to understand," he said. "Start from the beginning. Please." So I did. Told him about Catherine at 17, beautiful and talented, accepted to art school. Then the boyfriend who introduced her to pills for anxiety. Pills became powder. Needles became everything. She called me at 3 a.m. on June 10th, 1984. She was in labor, terrified, alone. The dealer boyfriend had vanished with her last $20. I drove her to the hospital, held her hand for 14 hours. When you were born, she was completely clean. The pain had overridden the need. For 2 perfect days, she was just a mother. She named you Brandon after our grandfather, said you'd be the one good thing she did with her life. The recovery center woman was crying silently, professionally, used to stories like this. Brandon stared at his hands, Catherine's hands, artist fingers that had never held a paintbrush. She tried to get clean. 3 different programs. The last time she made it 2 months. Came home to you, got a job at a diner, started painting again. Your nursery was covered in sunflowers because she said you were her sunshine, the thing that would save her. But I didn't, Brandon said. I couldn't. No baby can save an addict, Brandon. The disease is bigger than love, bigger than need, bigger than the perfect child waiting in the next room. I pulled out the last photo, the one I'd never shown anyone. Catherine holding him. 3 days before she died. Her eyes were clear, but exhausted, like she knew what was coming. December 15th. I came for dinner. We were planning your first Christmas. The door was unlocked. You were screaming upstairs. I found her in the bathroom, needle still in her arm. You'd been crying so long your voice was almost gone. 7 hours, the coroner estimated. 7 hours you were alone while she died. The parallel wasn't lost on Brandon. 7 hours abandoned, generation to generation. He stood abruptly, chair scraping. I need air, he said, and left the room. Through the glass wall, we watched him pace the hallway, pulling at his tie like it was strangling him. Will he be okay? The recovery center woman asked. I don't know, I said honestly. His whole life just collapsed. Everything he thought he knew was a lie. But he's stronger than his mother was. He has children who need him. Maybe that'll be enough. When Brandon came back, his face was strange. Empty, but somehow clearer. Like an addict after the first admission, the weight of secrets finally lifted. I want to see where she's buried, he said. I need to see her. The trustee gathered the papers. You have 30 days to vacate the property. I'm sorry it came to this, Mr. Mills. We drove to Mountain View Cemetery in silence. The stone was small, simple, weathered by 40 years of Colorado winters. Beloved mother and her dates. Nothing else because I couldn't afford more, and because what else was there to say? Catherine Mills, talented artist, loving sister, died of heroin, didn't fit on granite. Brandon knelt in the frozen grass, touched the stone with shaking fingers. Why a beloved mother? He asked. She barely had me for 6 months. Snow started falling. Light and silent, covering everything in temporary purity. Because that's what she was for those 6 months. She tried, Brandon. God, she tried. 3 rehab attempts. She'd get clean for weeks, then relapse. The night she died, she'd been clean for 2 months. Longest stretch ever. What triggered the relapse? He asked the question every family asks, seeking logic in chaos. I found out later. The dealer's boyfriend came back, stood outside the house with flowers, with apologies, with just a little something to take the edge off. She was lonely, exhausted from working and caring for you alone. 1 hit, he promised. Just one to feel normal again. Brandon was crying now. This son meeting his mother 40 years too late. Would she have loved me? If she'd lived? The question broke what was left of my composure. She did love you. More than the drugs, but not enough to stop them. She loved you enough to make sure you'd be safe when she couldn't be. That will, those conditions, that was love, Brandon. Twisted by addiction, maybe, but love nonetheless. He stood, brushed dirt and snow off his knees. I need to tell Diane. She needs to know before the house was gone. Before their life imploded completely. Before the pretense could no longer hold. She won't understand, I warned. She'll make it about money, about loss, about blame. Probably, he agreed. But she deserves the truth, even if she uses it as a weapon. We walked back to our cars, footprints in fresh snow already filling in behind us. Gerald, he said at his car door. Uncle Gerald, thank you for 40 years of lies. I mean that. Thank you for protecting me from this until I was old enough to destroy everything anyway. The news spread through the neighborhood like wildfire, the way scandalous news always does in suburbs where people pretend not to gossip. Diane had made sure of that, calling everyone she knew, painting herself as the victim of a massive deception. By December 3rd, everyone knew that Brandon Mills was actually the son of a heroin addict, that Gerald wasn't his father, but his uncle, and that they were losing their house because of a 40-year-old will. The confrontation came at the neighborhood Christmas party, because of course it did. Diane had insisted they still go, probably hoping for sympathy or allies. The Morrisons' house was decorated like a magazine spread, all white lights and silver ornaments. The moment we walked in, conversations stopped. Everyone stared. Brandon had been drinking before we arrived. I could smell it on him. Diane wore her anger like armor, chin high, eyes glittering with rage. There they are, someone whispered. The Mills family, or whatever they really are. Emma stayed close to me, my quiet shadow. Trevor had refused to come, locked in his room playing games and pretending the world wasn't ending. Smart kid, really. This wasn't a place for children. Diane had gathered a small court of sympathizers by the fireplace, mostly other wives who thrived on drama. 40 years of deception, she was saying, loud enough for everyone to hear. Living with a man who lied about everything, making us believe he was Brandon's father, making Brandon believe his mother was someone else entirely. She spotted me then, pointed with her wineglass. There he is, the great deceiver. The room turned to look at me. I walked forward slowly, Emma's hand in mine. You want to talk about deception? I said, voice carrying in the sudden silence. Let's talk about abandoning a 68-year-old man at a gas station in Wyoming. In winter. Let's talk about plotting to have me declared incompetent so you could steal what you thought was mine. Brandon stepped forward then, swaying slightly. Don't, he said. Just don't. But it was too late for don't. The truth demanded its full hearing. Your husband, I said to the room, but looking at Diane, left me on the side of a highway and drove away laughing. There's security footage. His own son confirmed it in a text message. They left me there for 7 hours in 15-degree weather. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Morrison, the hostess, looked horrified. Brandon, is this true? He couldn't meet her eyes. It was supposed to be a joke, he mumbled. A family tradition from Diane's side. Someone laughed, bitter and sharp. Some tradition? Abandoning elderly relatives in winter? He's not elderly, Diane snapped. And he's not even Brandon's real father. He's been lying to everyone for 40 years. Brandon's real mother was a drug addict who overdosed. A junkie! The word hung in the air like a slap. Several people stepped back from Diane, as if her cruelty was contagious. So what? It was Emma who spoke, my brave granddaughter. So what if she was sick? Grandpa raised Dad with love. That's what matters. And you made Dad abandon him. And now we're losing our home because you're mean and greedy and cruel. Emma! Diane moved toward her daughter. But Emma stepped behind me. No, I'm done being quiet. You've been planning this for months. I heard you talking to Aunt Patricia about getting Grandpa put in a home so you could have the house to yourselves. You said he was just an old man taking up space. More gasps. Diane's carefully maintained image cracking in real time. Brandon set down his drink hard enough to splash. Catherine, he said suddenly. Her name was Catherine. Everyone turned to look at him. My mother's name was Catherine Mills. She was 23 when she died. She was an artist. His voice got stronger. She loved me enough to make sure I'd be cared for. And this man, my uncle, gave up 40 years of his life to raise me. 40 years. He turned to look at me then, and for the first time since learning the truth, his eyes were clear. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry. Not just for Thanksgiving. For all of it. For not seeing what Diane was doing. For not standing up to her. For forgetting that you chose to raise me when you didn't have to. The apology hung between us. Genuine, but too late. The house goes to the Catherine Mills Recovery Fund in 27 days, I announced to the room. It will help people struggling with addiction, people like Brandon's mother who needed help and couldn't find it. That's her real legacy. Not the lies we told to protect a child, but the help her death will provide to others. Diane threw her wineglass then. It shattered against the Morrisons' perfect white wall, red wine running down like blood. You destroyed our lives, she screamed. You bitter old man! You destroyed everything! Mr. Morrison stepped forward. I think you should leave, he said to Diane. Now. The drive home was silent, except for Brandon's occasional sob. He'd lost everything in the span of a week. His identity, his house, his marriage, probably his reputation. Diane had taken Trevor and gone to her sister's. Emma chose to ride with Brandon and me. I'm sorry about your mom, she said to her father. Catherine, I'm sorry she died. Brandon broke completely then, crying like he hadn't since he was small. I look at old pictures now and I can see it, he said. I look just like her. How did I never see it? Because we see what we're told to see, I thought, but didn't say. Because children trust the adults who raise them, until they don't. That night, Brandon asked to see everything. All the pictures I'd hidden, all the documents, Catherine's death certificate, her few possessions I'd saved. We sat on the floor of my room, the smallest room in Catherine's house, and I told him the truth. How she'd tried to get clean 3 times. How she'd loved him fiercely for the 6 months she had him. How she'd died alone in the upstairs bathroom while he cried in his crib and the lamb burned in the oven. "The reverter clause," he said finally. "She knew, didn't she? Somehow she knew this might happen." I nodded. "She was smarter than the drugs let her be. She wanted to make sure you'd always be protected, even from yourself." He laughed, bitter and broken. Protected. I abandoned the one person who protected me my whole life. The next morning, Diane served Brandon with divorce papers. She wanted alimony, child support, and half of assets he didn't have. The house was already gone, the savings depleted from years of her spending. She'd even tried to claim emotional damage from the 40-year deception, as if she'd been the one lied to about her parentage. Brandon signed everything without fighting. "Let her have it," he said. "Whatever's left, let her have it." Emma refused to go with her mother. At 14, the court would consider her preference, and she preferred to stay with Brandon and me for the remaining days in Catherine's house. We spent those days packing, sorting through 40 years of accumulated life. Brandon found the onesie he'd worn home from the hospital, still in a box marked "Baby's First Year" in Catherine's handwriting. On December 15th, the anniversary of Catherine's death, we visited her grave for the first time together. Brandon brought flowers, white roses because he didn't know her favorite. I could have told him she loved sunflowers, bright and bold like she'd been before the drugs, but some knowledge comes too late to matter. 6 months later, I sat in my Florida apartment watching the sun set over the Gulf, painting the sky colors Catherine would have loved. The apartment was small but clean, nothing like the cluttered house in Denver. Just 2 rooms and a kitchen, everything I needed, and nothing I didn't. Trevor had chosen Diane, moving with her to her sister's house, then to the new husband's place when she remarried 4 months after the divorce. A real estate developer, who liked her edges, apparently. They lived in a big house in Cherry Creek. The Catherine Mills Recovery Center opened in April. They sent me photos of the dedication ceremony, the main room named after her. The director wrote that they'd already had 3 successful graduations, people who'd been clean for 6 months and counting. Catherine would have been proud, I thought. Or maybe just sad that such places were necessary. Brandon sent a letter that week, the first one I opened. His handwriting was shaky, but clear. "Uncle Gerald," it started, and the title didn't sting like it once had. "I drive by the old house sometimes. They haven't torn it down yet. It looks the same, but feels different. Empty, maybe. Or waiting." He went on about his recovery, about Emma's strength, about learning who he was without the cushion of lies I'd built for him. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Through the peephole, I saw Brandon, thinner than before, wearing jeans and a polo shirt instead of his usual business clothes. Emma stood beside him, smiling. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. "We were in Florida for a recovery conference," Brandon said. "Emma insisted we stop by." "You look well," I said, which was partly true. He looked tired, but clear, like someone who'd walked through fire and survived. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Just for a few minutes?" I stepped aside, let them into my simple space. Emma immediately went to the window, enchanted by the ocean view. Brandon stood awkwardly, taking in the sparse furnishings, the single photograph of Catherine on the side table. "I'm sorry," he said, "not just for Thanksgiving. For all of it. For not seeing what Diane was doing, for choosing her over you, for being weak when you needed me to be strong." The apology hung between us like morning fog. "I know," I said. "But knowing doesn't change what happened." "No," he agreed. "But maybe it changes what happens next." He pulled something from his pocket. A photo I'd never seen. Catherine in the hospital, holding newborn Brandon, looking directly at the camera with fierce love, despite the exhaustion in her eyes. The hospital had it in their archives. They gave it to me when I explained. He set it on my table next to the other photo. "She loved me, didn't she?" "More than anything," I said. "More than the drugs, though that wasn't enough. More than life, which is why she made sure you'd be protected after she was gone." He nodded, wiping his eyes. "The recovery center asked me to speak at their opening," he said. "About being the child of an addict. About breaking cycles." "Will you?" I asked. He nodded. "Emma's coming with me. She wants to understand our family history. All of it." Emma turned from the window. "Grandpa, will you come?" "To the speech?" I looked at these two pieces of my complicated family. "I'll think about it," I said, which was more than I'd planned to offer. They left after an hour, Brandon hugging me briefly at the door. "Thank you," he said. I watched them walk to their rental car, Brandon's arm around Emma's shoulders. They looked like survivors, which I supposed they were. We all were, in our way. That night, I sat with both photographs of Catherine, remembering the girl who'd painted sunflowers on her bedroom wall, who'd loved fiercely, but not enough. Somewhere in Denver, her house was saving lives. Somewhere else, Brandon was 90 days sober and counting. And here in Florida, I was finally free of the secret I'd carried for 40 years. The circle had closed messily, painfully, but it had closed. Maybe that was enough. Maybe, finally, we could all rest. If you've ever had to choose between being a doormat and standing up for yourself, even against family, please share your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more.